Ladies and gents, we have found the missing letter in BLM, the letter S for Black Lives Sometimes Matter, or S for Sasha Johnson. In this video, we are going to revisit Sasha Johnson's case from the night of the attack to the day it all fell apart. We will uncover why this case is so important and what lessons Black women specifically can learn from it. On the 23rd of May 2021, a young equal rights activist by the name of Sasha Johnson was shot in the head while attending a birthday party in the garden of a property on Concert Road in Peckham, South London. She was 27 years old at that time and the mother of 2 young boys. At around 3 a.m., while 30 guests were taking part in a silent disco in the garden, 4 masked black men burst through the side gate and entered the garden. One of the attackers was carrying a handgun loaded with 9mm bullets. A fight ensued and a man in his 20s suffered a knife wound. And it is during the confrontation that a gun was fired. A stray bullet struck Sasha Johnson in the head at a close range and she collapsed. According to the investigators, she was hit by mistake. She was not believed to be the intended victim. At the time, Sasha Johnson was in a relationship with the oldest son of the family who lived there. On the day of the tragic event, access to the property was restricted by security at the side of the house. But as it was revealed, that wasn't enough. Prince Dixon, 25 years old, Cameron Derricks, 18 years old, Troy Reed, 20 years old, and Devontae Brown, 19 years old, were all charged with conspiracy to murder and possession of a firearm with intent of endangering life. The 4 defendants were allegedly known to each other and had carried out surveillance of the house before the attack. According to the investigators in charge of the case, there had been a falling out and ongoing hostility between Cameron Derricks, Devontae Brown, and the 2 18-year-old occupants of the house. Previous incidents occurred, and not long before the birthday party, the family had installed a panic alarm in the house. The 4 men had pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to murder and for possession of a firearm and ammunition with intent to endanger life. The case was due to go to trial on the 7th of March 2022, but on the 22nd of February, the Crown Prosecution Service dropped the case against the 4 defendants because they were not able to offer any evidence against them. The core evidence came from contact with each other, phone data, and their movements, which are circumstantial evidence. Unfortunately, there was no direct evidence identifying any of the defendants as the attackers. According to the Detective Chief Inspector in charge of the case, the biggest challenge was the wall of silence they had faced when appealing for witnesses to come forward. It was revealed that 30 people were attending the silent disco that night, but they seemed to have taken the silent theme to another level when they decided to remain silent about the attack. Sasha Johnson was rushed to King's College Hospital where she underwent emergency surgery. She survived the attack but suffered catastrophic and permanent injuries. This is Shakira Williams, Sasha Johnson's sister, describing her injuries in an interview she did with the BBC alongside her mother in February 2022.
Sasha's come a long way and she's done some amazing things to even for the doctors to question it. So the last conversation we had was of positive and Sasha getting better. The injuries has caused Sasha to lose one of her eyes. It has caused her to lose, for now, one side of her body because it doesn't move. Sasha has a tube that goes in her brain, down in her stomach. So you can keep the fluid drained off her brain so she can be safe. And most of all, the biggest injury to my sister is her as a person losing her confidence and just really not knowing what's going on at the moment.
Sasha lost an eye and was left paralyzed down one side of her body. Part of her skull is missing. She struggles to say more than a few words and requires constant medical care. She often suffers terrible pain and has limited mobility. More than a year after the horrific attack, the charity Crime Stopper is trying to revive the case by offering a £20,000 reward to anyone with information leading to the conviction of those responsible for Sasha Johnson's shooting. To understand why this attack is shocking and telling, we first need to know who Sasha Johnson is. Sasha Johnson was born in December 1983 from Jamaican parents. She was raised in Oxford, England by a white foster mother who, in her own words, taught her to love herself.
I have a white foster mother who I grew up with, so I'm not racist. I have no room to be racist. I can only love myself because she taught me to love myself. She taught me that she couldn't do my hair, so I had to do my hair myself. So I had to learn my culture and I had to embrace my culture. She helped me to embrace my culture.
She studied youth and community development at Ruskin College in Oxford. And it is at that time that she started doing community activism. She found inspiration in Marcus Garvey, Angela Davis, Eartha Kitt, Assata Shakur, Malcolm X, and Nanny the Maroon, amongst others. Before the attack, Sasha Johnson was very involved in her community. She worked as a youth worker and owned two businesses, an Afro-Caribbean restaurant called Caribou's and a cleaning business called Sisters Keepers. She also volunteered in several food distribution initiatives.
To fill in the spot that the normal food bank will fill in, but instead giving our people food that they actually eat. So we've got plantain, sweet potato, hot noodle for soup. We've got like black food and we just put it all in a parcel. We have several organisations that we donate the parcels to in order to make sure that black people in that community has access to their own dietary requirements. So this is like our plantain. We do like the whole plantain thing. We do Scotch bonnet time, so we put, because we do parcels for elder people in our community as well, and we know that sometimes they don't really want to eat the meat. So we do like the soup. We put one of these, chicken, sweet potatoes and all of that to make the soup in there with it. Then we do our cereals for our younger kids.
How you feeling, Sasha?
Exhausted, but it's worth it. Exercise that I don't get, I've been putting weight on, but this will help the sister out. But now I'm happy that people are coming to pick up their parcels rather than driving around everywhere. So Irisha's donated plantains to the food bank, which is really good. Yeah, get the chicken send me a copy of those addresses on that number I just messaged you on? Hiya. We had some food to leave for your neighbour, but she's not in. Would you be able to keep it for her until she comes? It's just some shopping.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Tell your mom, thanks too.
Tell your mum we said thank you, yeah? Appreciate it, thanks. Some of them even might be in the house, but because they're hearing more than one voices, they're apprehensive to open their door. But then I'll always like get a text later saying I've got it.
Honestly, I couldn't give you enough credit, man.
No, you're amazing, man. Every week you'll see me. And we'll bring separate parcels for your uncle and granddad as well.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you so much, man.
That's all right, babe. Have a good week.
And you, my lovely.
Next Wednesday. Take care. Hiya. Don't open it too much. That wind, you don't want to get cold.
Yeah, okay. Alright.
Thank you so much. I'll see you next Wednesday as well. Okay. So I do it every week. So if you have anybody you want to recommend to me, just send Irisha. That's who recommended you. Thank you. Have a lovely
Have a nice night.
But despite her busy schedule, she was a devoted mother to her 2 young boys that she raised on her own. On the political scene, Sasha Johnson was the UK's new Black Panther Party's representative. She had been a prominent figure in the Black Lives Matter movement, but left the party over internal disagreements. She is one of the founding members of the Taking the Initiative Party, which she described as
TTIP! TTIP! This will be the first black-led political party in the UK. We will have representation. This is what democracy looks like.
Sasha was also known to be a controversial political figure. She would often accuse Black people of coonery when they didn't agree with her political views.
I never said that I wanted to enslave no white man. You yourself.
Well, that's what you got banned from Twitter for.
Wake the head up and stop
That's
re-perpetuating
not
lies.
conducive and it's not helpful.
That's why when I say about Coons, your collaborator.
Why do you think kneeling on a man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds will kill him?
I can show you a video now.
That's a legal hold, by the way.
I'll show you.
Listen, you just need to shut up, man. You're a coon. You just need to shut up.
Get angry some more and threaten me some more.
Get angry and threaten you some more. I promise you, I don't threaten you. I promise you.
Promise. Okay.
So come out there. Let's live through the promise. Come out there, let's live through the promise.
Come on.
Come out there, we'll live through the promise. I can promise you now. Come out there, we live it through.
Okay, dude.
You're a coon. Dude, what? What do you mean? Because I'm a girl, you think I'm gonna fuck you up?
Come on, man.
Because I'm a girl.
We're here to
You're here to drive this side out to make it look like all black people are ignorant. Yeah, I'm angry right now because of what's going on. It's made me angry, yes. Just like when he was angry when he thought that his town was being destructed, his city statues were going down. I'm angry too.
Of course you're angry.
Yeah, so why are you calling me dude? What does the dude mean?
And you also
what does the dude mean?
You don't believe stats and facts
what does the dude mean?
It's recorded.
What does the dude mean? What does the dude mean?
I'll be honest.
How am I? You're what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
We're what you are what we're dealing with.
Overly emotional, angry, quick to violence.
Are you calling a black woman angry? You're a coon. You don't need to be in this conversation. You don't need to be in this conversation.
You should be able.
How can I racially abuse this man? Can someone give this brother some knowledge? How can I racially abuse him? How can I?
Unarmed black men being killed.
You don't think a black person can be racist?
No, we ain't got that. We've got the power to be prejudiced. We could be prejudiced, but I don't think we have the power to be racist. And in certain terms, when you look at racism, when we're talking about racism, we're talking about it from the structure, the systemic structure of it. We're not talking about it as in, oh, a black boy went out and called you a white cunt, and we're not talking about it from that sense. We're talking, when we're coming out now, we're saying, for years and years, why are you laughing?
Carry on. It's okay. Come.
Nothing. Fuck him up.
What's going on?
Sasha.
If he's gonna stay there, I'll fuck him up. I'm sorry. Why is he laughing? Why is he laughing? What is a joke? Do you mind to tell us a joke?
Your worldview.
My point of view is a joke.
The world view.
My world view is a joke. What world view have I just shown?
Systemic, institutional racism.
So that doesn't
Black
make...
people can't be racist.
So
all neo-Marxist dogma.
I don't know. We don't know. I don't know about
politics.
I don't know about politics.
I don't know about no Marxist thing, you fucking fool. Who's talking
Can we,
about
Sasha, we've come here. Can we just have a talk?
I don't know about no Marxist thing. It's black men like you that are the problem, that lead other people to believe that these problems don't exist in our community.
She said that violence was sometimes necessary.
What I want to say is, to me, if it doesn't come in peace, there's only one way that change has ever happened, isn't it? It's through violence.
And you support that?
I don't support violence against the innocent, but I support violence against oppressors and tyranny.
And would that include the forces of law and order in the UK?
Not just the law and order in the UK, but globally, what oppression is signified out there. But in the UK, what it means is that we're awake now. We're asking for the change first and foremost. We're asking for unity. We're asking for social justice. And if you feel that that's too much to give, that's our basic human rights, then we've got a problem.
She was also criticized for her stance on the police.
Justice! Take it to the streets! Fuck them!
She compared the British police to the Ku Klux Klan.
The police is no different from the KKK. They stand around and protect statues and buildings instead of people.
She called for the police funding to be reallocated into youth services and for the implementation of a race offenders register. And she also called for the establishment of a black militia in the UK.
We need a black militia. What we're saying is, you push, we push. You fight, we fight. Peace is not peace until you recognize our life. And we're not going to lay down no more. I'm not going down on a knee. I'm always going to be 10 toes standing. Just like my ancestors, 10 toes standing.
She was arrested once during one of her protests for violating lockdown rules. At some point, she was banned from entering London over incitement to violence and police harassment, but she lawyered up and the ban was removed. When George Floyd, a drug addict with a lengthy criminal record, was killed by a rogue white police officer during an arrest on the 25th of May 2020, Sasha Johnson organized within months the Million People March to be his voice. The march would only gather 400 people on the 30th of August 2020. Unfortunately, Sasha would be gunned down like a dog a year later on the 23rd of May 2021, not at a rally and not by a white supremacist, but at a birthday party by the very men she had spent years defending, Pookies. Black people spend a lot of energy denouncing police brutality, but are very quiet, almost comatose, when it comes to denouncing Pookie Brutality. Although Pookie Brutality is responsible of the majority of black homicides. As Tupac beautifully said in his song Only God Can Judge Me, they say it's a white man I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here. Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed on the streets of London than other ethnic groups. Almost half of all murder victims in the capital in 2019 were black, despite them making up only 13% of the city's population. Out of 135 of the people who were violently killed in London that year, 62 were black compared to 48 white, 21 Asian, and 4 Latin American or mixed heritage. More of London's murder victims were black than any other ethnic group, despite 59.8% of the city's wider population being white. Of these victims, 57 were male and 5 were female. Black people were also 4 times more likely to be convicted of murder and were on average 3 years younger than the mean age of 23 at the time, while white killers were 10 years older. Black people are more likely to be involved in violent crime and at an earlier age than other racial groups. In the US, Although African Americans make up just 13% of the US population, they account for 46% of all murders within the 48 contiguous states. This is a big problem, but now, let's speak about the boogeyman while the Pookie Man is roaming around, terrorizing everyone and committing crime. Sasha Johnson's case is representative of the cognitive dissonance that plagues Black activist circles and the Black community in general. The morbidly obese elephant in the room is there, under their nose, Pookie Brutality, but they refuse to address or even look at the problem and instead make police brutality their focus. Numbers don't lie. According to Mapping Police Violence, the actual number of unarmed Black men killed by the police in the US in 2019 is 27. And when it comes to death in police custody in the UK, in the decade to 2018-2019, of the 163 who had died, just 13 were Black, 8%. In the same period, Black people made up 9% of arrests, but 8% of death in custody. On the other hand, 53% of young Black men are victims of stabbings, and 73% of perpetrators are young Black men. Sasha Johnson became the victim of the very men she spent time and energy cheerleading for. There were 1,821 Black women and girls killed in 2020 in America. That was an additional 461 women and girls who were murdered in 2020 compared to 2019. That's 5 women and girls a day. Black women and girls in the US are 4 times more likely to die by violence than white or Hispanic women. In 2020, about 75% of Black femicide victims were killed with a gun. These women and girls were killed savagely, put down like dogs by Pookies. The same type of men the Victim League and their allies in the media are trying hard and furious to depict as martyrs. Ironically, Black women are Pookie's most loyal groupies. They march, protest, organize fundraisings, and defend them at every opportunity. And what do they get in return for their loyal service? A bullet in the head. That's right, they are put down like raggedy service dogs. But at least it was not by a white man. Black women offer Pookies a global memorial, and in return Pookies offer them a gun memorial. And all these women that you see on your screen are fully aware of that. They put themselves on the front line for men who will never have their back, and they know it. They confront the police when oftentimes the police are the only entity standing between them and Pookies holding a gun. Black women are fighting for the very men they need protection from. There was a time in history when Black women were kind of spared from the hardcore reality of Pookie brutality because they were seen as the sole caregivers of Black boys. But now it's open season on Black women. The bullet hits indiscriminately men and women, and the children, if they survive Pookie brutality, often end up under the care of their grandmother. And this is the reality of Jean-Charles Alexander's 2-year-old child. Jean-Charles Alexander is a former child star who at 12 years old appeared in the Oscar-nominated 2012 movie Beasts of the Southern Wild. On Saturday the 27th of November 2021, at around 9 p.m., Jean-Charles was sitting in a car with a male friend in the 1500 block of North Claiborne Avenue in New Orleans, Louisiana, when a masked Black man opened fire on both of them and then fled. She died on the scene. She was only 22 years old. Her friend, who also suffered a gunshot wound, was able to drive himself to the hospital for treatment. It is said that she wasn't the intended target, but the man was. Another victim of Pookie brutality was a little Black girl 2 years older than Jean-Charles Alexander's daughter. Her name is Ariana Delany. Her great-uncle was the late George Floyd, whose notable achievement was to die at the knee of a rogue white police officer. At around 3 a.m. on New Year's Day, Ariana Delany, who was 4 years old at that time, was sleeping in her bed when a shooter opened fire on the apartment she was living in with her parents in South Houston, Texas. This is how Ariana's father, Derek Delany, recalled the incident.
My daughter jumped up and said, "Daddy, I've been hit." And I was shocked until I seen the blood, until I realized that my 4-year-old daughter was really hit. And she don't know what's going on. She was asleep.
They called the ambulance, but it took them too long to show up, so the mother drove Ariana to the hospital herself. The doctors discovered she had 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung and liver, and COVID-19. She had to undergo an emergency surgery, had 3 blood transfusions, and was at the ICU for a week, unable to breathe on her own. She survived the attack, but it has left her traumatized.
Ariana is traumatized. She doesn't sleep by herself. She hears loud noises. She's scared.
This little girl was dragged from rallies to rallies, groomed at an early age to put her life on the line for adult males when she should have been home playing with her dolls. And how was she rewarded? With a bullet in her torso. Pookie Brutality was a reward. Mr. Delany claimed it was a targeted shooting, but did not elaborate. The fact that the modus operandi was spraying her house senselessly like a possessed spirit, the fact that the victim's parents were more angry at the police than they were at the shooter, the fact that the victim league didn't show up at the hospital to be seen with the victim, the fact that the media didn't give a fuck about the story, you know it's another case of Pookie Brutality. Instead of blaming the man who is responsible for his daughter almost losing her life, Derek Delany blames the police for taking too long to show up. You cannot make this stuff up. The police literally doesn't have any constitutional duty to protect you. They don't even have to show up when you call. In 2005, the US Supreme Court ruled that the police did not have any constitutional duty to protect a person from harm. On the other hand, a man has a duty to protect his family from harm. The mother even tried to make money off her daughter's tragedy.
Bianca says she's also looking for legal assistance as she seeks justice for her daughter and answers about HPD's delayed response.
Sasha Johnson had a similar reaction when her car was vandalized.
My car's been smashed up. Nothing's been taken from the car. They've smashed up the car. They've kicked the car. So just warning you guys that people are attacking activists that are speaking out for themselves. People are attacking them, attacking their personal property and stuff like that. So my car's been smashed up. Obviously I do have to video this shit because this is life-threatening. This is what happens when, as a black woman, when you come to the surface and you start to speak out against oppressors and shit.
She complained that the police wasn't doing enough. The same police she called the KKK in her rallies.
So if I come out right now and I start screaming in these streets, or I even turn my megaphone on in this street, you'll see how much police will come, right? And they'll come. Well, my car gets smashed into. They say they're not coming out tonight. They said they're sending a reference number. They haven't sent a reference number. Be vigilant, people. Especially when you're out here speaking truth to power. Understand that there's people that don't like you for what you're doing. And they'll go through any meds. And these police are not here to protect everybody. They're really not here to protect everybody. Because if I was to march in that street right now, they'll come straight away, riot van and all, ready to take me. But I get my personal belongings get attacked. People are attacking. I could have been in the car on my way to the car and turned up and they could have been smashing in the car. And they didn't give a shit about it. No reference number.
When a black person is harmed by the police, you know the identity of the officers who committed the crime. Derek Chauvin, Kim Porter, Amber Geiger, Blaine Salomone, etc. And oftentimes, the families of the victims receive compensation. On the other hand, the victims of Pookie Brutality hardly receive justice in the form of a conviction, let alone money. Who shot Jean-Charles Alexander? Who shot Ariana Delany in the stomach? Who shot Sasha Johnson in the head? We will probably never know. According to the most recent FBI Crime in the United States report, only 45% of violent crimes lead to arrest and prosecution. Some people have spent the past 2 years shouting the names of the criminals shot by the police. Great job! Now say the names of the criminals who shot Jean-Charles Alexander, Ariana Delany, Sasha Johnson, and the ones whose names never made it to the media headlines.